Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Cynthia Harrison from Mudras Healing Arts, and we're here Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons, Hawaii Standard Time, for temple time, for mystic musings. Today it's going to be a temple time, and then we'll see where we go. Right. So, good morning. Where's Marie String? Who's on? Who's coming in? Who's here live? I'm on Zoom as well, so if you've got the Zoom link, pop over and say good day to me so I can see you. And there we go. I got you. I'll let you in. So let me just if I've got the restream working today, first time in the month. And so if you're watching me from any other platform other than Instagram or on Zoom, you can type in, hey, or say something and I will see it. You're right there in front of me. All right. So who are you? Where are you? How are you? And what are we going to do today? Let me just get this one on. Well, we're going to do temple time, but we'll see what else. We've got our first theory module of Psi this afternoon. So I'm excited about that. I was working out this morning and doing my practice and got a huge download. And I'm like, oh, of course, it's always the day before. It's always the day before or the day of. And sometimes it's even while I'm teaching. But when I got this download, and it was about the rise to the rose. So it's about conscious evolution. Everything I do is. But I'm a storyteller. I'm a mystic medicine woman, and I heal through story, among other things. But I also teach through metaphor and bringing light to the knowings within ancient texts and the mysteries. And so, I've got the majority of the program formatted, but it's just the way it's always worked. No matter how structured and prepared I want to be, Spirit comes in and says, what about this? And don't you think they need to know about that? And so I'm extra. I was so excited about going into the theory because I love bringing all the bits together in a way that almost like putting the jigsaw puzzle together for people so that they can have a connection to the information, because without a connection or there's got to be something. I was talking to a client the other week about certain aspects of certain theory and what she connects to and what she doesn't. And hey, Nicole, not sure where you're watching from, but I saw your little name pop up. So I hope you're prepared for this afternoon. I sent you a message. Are you ready? Because I tell you what, the story came in this morning. I'm like, really? So we're going to start with the story and then go into breaking it down so that you can feel into it and get a deep knowing. You have the night off. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So it's not this class. It's this afternoon. So let's get on with what we're doing here. But I guess it's all connected. And I've literally just come out of that. And it's so good. It's so good. So where are we going today? What are we doing today? So I don't have anything planned other than doing a, someone else has said hello. It just says Facebook user hello. But anyway, welcome. We are going to do a circle in a short amount of time. What's coming up for you? What is something that you're seeing in the world? Let me just get this one on. There we go. But I guess it's all. Oh, so you're watching. So Nicole, you're watching from Rhombus because I got you on here as well. So somebody else watching from somewhere else. And so you're welcome. There's a bunch of people I can see. So say hello and just say your name in your comment, because on Restream it doesn't say your name unless you go into Restream, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Take a breath. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Ah, Kate. Hey, Kate. Where are you? You can answer that from wherever you like, however you like. The country, the state, the moment, where you are, the aspect of yourself. Are you, well, that just got prickles in my legs saying that. So are you out there? Are you in here? Are you, you're scrolling through your Instagram or your different feeds, so many now. Oh, hi, Barbara. Yes, you're all coming through now. Woohoo! All right. Coming from a place of curiosity. Awesome. Coming from lands of the Suisun people. Is that how you say that? In Northern California. Suisun people. Is that the Sioux? So welcome. Beautiful. Let's link into those. If you know your people, who are your people? So what we're going into this afternoon, I'll just touch on it. So Nicole, you'll hear more of it later, but like what's your oldest, most ancient heritage? Suisun. Oh, okay. Suisun. Coming from. Beautiful. Right. Feel into that. Suisun. Nice. In California. So that's a new connection for me. I'm not aware of that. Of the peoples of Suisun. And so I say, Nicole's saying she's got her ancestry, which was an eye-opener. But what's your most ancient, your oldest, go as far back as you can possibly? Where do you come from? Oh, we're going there today. Hey, Rebel. Yay. I said I wasn't going to do Tuesdays anymore, but I figured that I can because we have class in the afternoons, not the mornings. So when I can, I will. They are part of the Patuan tribe, but my ancestry is European, been in the US for a very long time. France, 800s. What's beyond that? Beyond that, What's the eldest matriarch and patriarch? Concept of ancient people from Africa. And where did they come from? Ooh, we're going there. there's not, I mean, you don't have to have the answer. I just want you to think about it, to feel about it, to be about it. Like, who are you? Who are the ancestors that are looking through the world through your eyes right at this moment? How and why are you here as a human? As the feminine body, or masculine in the feminine body, or masculine body, like whatever you, whoever, however, where, who, do you contemplate that? There's a I'm going to misquote it, so I'm not going to say, I'll look it up. It's an African saying around, I think it's Swahili or from Swaziland. I could be incorrect, so don't quote me on that. But it's around what I just said. It's a greeting that around, like in Avatar, they say, I see you. Well, where does that come from? So there's a lot of cultures, namaste, Mahatma, Satnam. Like, it's about like seeing the wise one within you, like greeting that Satnam, that true identity. The Mahatma is, the greatness within you. I'm greeting that. But what is that? Who is that? How is that? So just reading the comments, that is interesting line to ponder. Who is seen through my eyes? Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a story, because we've got some contemplation. Do you see, once you start to think and contemplate, especially when you start to interact, right? More comes. So as soon as you start to ask a question, it's like there's a connection. So I started off saying, to learn something or to really connect, because you can learn anything, right? But to really connect and have a knowing so that it becomes part of you. Right? Coptic Egyptian. Oh my goodness. So remind me, Nicole, I'll tell you a story about that, because I met the Coptic Pope. Of course I did. The one that was in hiding for 40 years. I didn't even know who he was. I come across the most amazing human beings, and they tell me their story, and we sit. Anyway, I got a million of them, but the Coptic Pope in Egypt when I was 25. And he invited me to the monastery, and the monks made us, well, and I was sort of vegetarian, but they made us chicken, and they killed one of the chickens for us to eat and all that, because it was all homegrown and all that sort of stuff. But this ancient monastery, and the Coptic Pope did a teaching for us, like a private sort of just this is my life. This is the mystical life. I get taken to these places that I have no comprehension of what it is or who it is and how it is. And then later on I go, oh my goodness, how on earth did I have that experience? He gave me a silver, I've still got it. It's in a blue velvet little case, and it's a medallion. And if you were of that religion, you got a gold one. But it was just this exchange. And I still have it to this day. Well, it's actually in Perth. And it's just a connection. Same when I went to India. I've been to India a few times, but my youngest daughter and I were just walking one day, not really knowing where we were going. We would explore, and we came across Kali, the second largest Kali temple. I had no idea. We were just walking, and I was called in, and the holy man that looked after that temple gave me a banana for a start, and a cloth, and something else. Oh, and his card, I've still got them in Perth. And we sat down and conversed about the Great Mother, my understanding. So holy woman to holy man, or mystic to, you know what I'm saying? And I shared with him my understanding as best I could because of the language barrier around, you know, Adi Shakti, Kali Ma, and the emanations of her, and how, you know, the deities basically were birthed from her and whatnot. And he shared his, and they were very similar. Yet he was so intrigued, but so was I. And we had this like meeting of spirit together. And people were coming up to him and touching his feet. Like he was the holy man of that area, touching his feet. And here I was, just sitting and conversing about the Great Mother and with the Coptic. So I hope you're enjoying this, Nicole, because you took me way off into story. But my point is, that's where these teachings come from. These teachings come from those experiences, those connections. And when it's like there was a mystic I interviewed, Elizabeth, what's the last name? Woods, I believe. And I've only met her once, but we conversed for a while because we were trying to connect. And for whatever reason, we just kept missing each other. And she was being taken around to her places and I was taken around to my places. But when we met, as soon as we met, we saw each other, because a seer sees a seer. A seer sees a seer. When you can see, you see others that can see, right? Do you understand? When you're awake, you see others. You start to be able to know at a deep level, because when a seer, and it's actually in the interview, I might repost that. We sat there and ended up talking about the infinity of when a seer sees a seer, because it's like a mirror into a mirror and it's an infinite reflection. Do you understand what I mean? Does that make sense? But to feel that, and she went on to talk about how rare it is for a seer to sit in front of another seer, because many have activation, but not many are seers. So anyway, that's a whole another story we can go into, but just reflection. So, Miss Nicole, Coptic Egyptian. There you go. Interesting. Yeah. I'll have to, I did take a photo of that when I was packing. I was taking photos of things. See if I can find that for you. I believe it's got a donkey on it. I think anyway, it's the most beautiful. You can see I'm actually seeing the monastery and the actual artwork. Oh, it's so magnificent. Anyway, it's where is it exactly? I was going to say it's near Mount Sinai. However, I don't want to offend anybody, but which is the correct Mount Sinai? Anyway, so the one that they call Mount Sinai, I've been to where the burning bush was and all of that. All when I was 25, had no religious background. Been to Sunday school, I think twice when I was like 5 or 6. Absolutely. I went to the first place called Saint Bishoy. I recall that because I was trying to recall names of places. It's not my forte. I remember that, like, I can see them. I can tell you all about what they look like, what they feel like, what the energy is like, but what they're called, not so much. So Saint Bishoy was the first place, so the story goes, where Sunday Mass was the first Sunday where the monks came out of the caves and worshipped together. And so it's a place you get there by boat. Oh, you might be able to get there by land, but we got there by boat. And Saint Bishoy, ancient place. And anyway, so all of these codes, all of this energy impregnation for most of my life, really. So, of course, we have story time, Nicole, because I know how you love a story. So we're not going to go too much in. So so how are you? So back to, like, so I'm telling you story, and you might feel, well, how does that even connect to me? If you're watching this, so I'm just seeing what it's always got a heading of mystic, ministry, circle, and temple time. So if you're watching this, there's got to be some connection to either mysticism, metaphysics, temple time. So what would that, it's got ministry in it. Do you know what I mean? So what's your belief around our connection as humans, as human? Where does that stop? I'm not answering these questions for you. I'm giving you contemplations. Giving you contemplations. This afternoon, I'll give you some prompts, options of where I'm going with, my knowings, and but of course, I will never tell you what to believe. I'll suggest ways of knowing that you can explore and be curious about, and see for yourself, and see with the eye of the heart. Who are you? What are you? How are you? How do you are in the world? And what does that mean? Well, lots of questions. Are you overwhelmed yet? Contemplations. It's not that you have to have an answer. It's about going, wow. Yeah, if I think I'm this matter, this physical being, which you are, and, right? And so I'm going to tell you another story. Some of you may have heard it, because there was a point where my humility kicked in even more. I was training. I was in the UK, and I was training in advanced energy medicine with Donna Eden and her husband, David Feinstein. And there was all the greats there, like, I've just met amazing people. It's just bizarre. I never planned to, it just happens. Anyway, long story short, we're at, I was one of the elders at the graduation for one of the, I think it was level 1 or 2, I don't know, might have been level 2 actually, where, often in different areas of my life, I'm now an elder, right? I'm now sort of like a matriarch in certain areas. So in that one, I've been around for a long time, and so we're often asked to come and help celebrate or usher in the new year, the new the new way of life as either a teacher, it's usually as a teacher in some discipline or modality. And in the speech that David Feinstein gave, I had this immense aha, and it's nothing profound really if I just tell you, but at that point in time, I needed to hear it because I realized, see, they were all standing on our shoulders. As it's some of you who are learning with me, right, or have trained in energy medicine with me, or in the mystery school, or in Evolver, or in intuitive studies, or in trance, or in whatever else I've taught over the decades. Standing on the shoulders, right? But when I realized all the lineages that come through me, that see through my eyes. And I guess it would take some time to set that up a little bit more so you could experience that. And I'll give you a little experience of it. It's like knowing, okay, this is my teacher and this is my teacher. And who are their teachers? And who are their teachers? And who are their teachers? So in Kundalini Yoga, we call it the golden chain. Right? In other modalities or other, ways of knowing, it's like following that back. And in that moment, I saw the millions. It's just this sea, this ocean of greatness. And they've all informed each other back and forth. It's not just, it's like I inform you, but you inform me. It's a reciprocity. It's a symbiotic relationship, right? And I'd never forgotten that. It was just a moment of seeing all of these people. And now if we bring that around to what I started off saying around who sees through the little flying, who sees through your eyes. So that's genetically, energetically, spiritually, because it depends what you believe, but my knowing is one soul, the soul, and the aspect of that is within you. You not think or know that you can access any of that information. It's linked through you. It's linked through you. So, what's coming up? What's going on? You are all of those. I can tell you my direct lineage. I mean, I could tell you the Coptic Pope taught me. I can remember what he said to this day, like when he started to speak, because I couldn't believe that somebody could be hidden for 40 years or 30 something years. I remember 40. 40 is a good number. So we'll say 40, right? Because his life was at risk. And what he learned, all the different languages, that's why he could speak English, multiple languages. And he was a great, great man. So this is back in the day. I don't know. I've often thought, I wonder if he's still around. I wonder if he's still around. Because I don't know what his name was. I just know he was the Coptic Pope back in 1994, 95, right? So if anyone can tell me who that was, that would be awesome. Because my memory for that sort of, but I can remember what he looks like, what he said, the feel of the plate. I can see everything. It's just those human categorization pieces that tend to be not so in my field. Because his soul will always be with me. He is possibly looking through my eyes right now, right? All of those greats, some alive, some not. And when you get, I was going to say sensitive enough, when you get expanded enough, when you get, what's another word for that? Illuminated and connected, the circuits are connected, right? And you have all of that. So, shall we do circle? I'm just seeing if another story is coming. I'm going to share this. There is more story because it's about story. And I've been challenged by this most of my life. So some of you might connect with this or might be familiar to you. It's around how I learn and how for most of my life I felt how I did anything wasn't the way it's supposed to be done. Not only that, I'm left-handed. So back when I was young, it was still phasing out. They used to make left-handers right-handers. I don't know if you knew that. And, you know, so you can only write with your right hand. And, there is nothing really for left-handers. Now there's shops for left-handers, there's everything. But the way that I described how I see the world, I'm not 100% sure if it's directed to being left-handed, right? Left-handed, right? Or if it's just another way my sparkly brain works. But when I would see the world, it's literally how you do see the world, but I didn't know the science then. I could only say how I saw, what I see. I would see the world. I would see how you show me something. And then I would have to flip it. It's like upside down and back to front in my mind to be able to understand what you just showed me. Does that make sense? Right? So, I mean, it's got to do, I don't know, I'm going to have to look up. I'm going to look up whether they've done research on this or not, because maybe I should do the research on it. But it really came to light when was it? It was actually, I was in the UK again. And I had a huge experience. I won't talk about it on a public forum, but in classes, I can go into it if you like. But what happened was that I couldn't access the information I had known before, and I couldn't access information through spirit. It was like the way that I could understand who I was and the world had got me to this space where there was nothing, right? It's beyond what you get in meditation and all of that. This was like, it was a part of a death alchemy, let's say. And every one of my systems, the circuits popped. So I was surrounded by energy workers, and I was sharing a room with one. We call her Roomie because she was my roommate. Get it? She still calls herself my roomie. You know, RUMI. But I said to her, I couldn't read numbers. I couldn't understand English. Like, everything popped. Now, not to scare you, because I know exactly what happened and I knew it at the time, but I didn't have anyone around me that understood it, right? So I had to, with the limited information I had left, I couldn't even find my way back to my room. And I just had to sit. I sat on the floor in front of the elevator. I didn't know what number my room was. I didn't know what floor my room was because I couldn't understand numbers. And this is bizarre, but this is a little glimpse of a death alchemy, right? Where you come back in, and I did come back in fully later, but you come back in and you don't know any of the information. You can't contact. It's like you're this, I want to say alien, but it's like you just reborn. It's the best I could say. Anyway, got my, I sat and I just was still, and I don't even know how I made my way back to the room, but I couldn't get in the door. My roommate was there. She let me in, and I said, I need your help. And I said, I need you to help me with some of the energies. I said, everything is blown. Like every main energy system had blown. And I was so sensitive. So you don't have to worry about this because it will not happen to you. But the things that happened to me for reasons. In the main, so that I can teach. But she couldn't even put her hand in front of me. She had to go to the other side of the room to move my energy. It hurt. It hurt. It just hurt. Everything hurt. And so we went to bed, and I did bits and pieces. So Nicole's saying something. I don't want to go too far into it, but I'm getting to the point of the story in how what was happening, and it links to this way that I saw as a left-hander, right? So this may be cryptic to some of you, but I'm just going to say it because I don't have time to really do it as a teaching, but it is a whole teaching in itself. That's what I always say, but it's true. So the next day, I went down. We had it was a big energy thing, advanced energy practitioners and the top people in their fields and whatnot. So I went down and got Eva, her name was, and she's very gentle, and I just whispered to her and I said, I need your help. And she got somebody else to work from my feet, and she worked from my head, and it was like energetically, it was like she was giving me CPR, but she wasn't giving me CPR. It was like a right, because of what was going on in my fields. From then, it still took time because everything had blown to and when I say blown, that's just my quick way of saying what actually happened. But it's like sometimes this stuff has to happen. And it's happened to me numerous times. Like I've had numerous, like there's the main death alchemy, which this isn't it. That happened before this. But this was where I was shown so much, and I actually was part, like integral to changing how that modality teaches and how they deal with people like me. And so I went on this journey of like why and how and all the rest of it, that I was that catalyst to show them, right, how to work with sensitives, how to be, because that particular modality was for people who couldn't see, feel, sense, know energy, so that everybody has the opportunity to work with energies. But it was set up for people who couldn't, so that they could. Do you understand? And so those that are already very sensitive, and there were particular protocols that needed some adjustment, let's just say, okay? And in every school that I've been part of or teacher with, this has happened. And I guess that's just part of why I'm here in the world, right? To show perspective, these other perspectives, right? And how to adjust and expand and extend how they're served, how they're serving what they serve. Anyway, so I was part of looking at another stream for people who learn differently, sparkly brains, right? Those that are really sensitive and get their information through knowing and whatnot. Anyway, so that was that story. But how that energy came back in is my point. So I'll say this and then we'll wrap it up. We'll do a circle, because otherwise I'll be teaching all day. Does anyone know what a camera obscura is? A camera obscura? If you don't, you've got to look it up. It's awesome technology. So I've known about, yeah, like I've done contemporary art and all the rest of it. So, you know, doing different imagery and how we see and these sorts of things, right? So how it works is like, so if you've got a dark, actually I went to one that you can walk into, funnily enough, that was in the UK too. That was at the house or the mansion that Harry Potter was filmed at. Does anyone know what that's called? See, I stumbled across that too. And there was this huge cauldron in there and I was like, what? And then they told me, oh, this is where a part of Harry Potter was filmed. It was this awesome place. Yeah, you've been there. And magical things happen there too. But they had this, so Nicole, did they have this wooden box outside that you could walk into? Because that was a life-size version of a camera obscura. So they had a hole, and an image from outside would be inside, but it'd be upside down. Right? So that's how a camera works. You know, the old box cameras, what are they called? The Kodak cameras. They're like we used to have them, you know, when I was in like kindergarten, we had these, you know, cameras to play with because they were so old, probably in museums and stuff now, but they were like these black boxes, and you look down into them and it had a thing inside that would like flip the image around. And so you press the button and it takes the photo. That's what happened to me. And I drew it and I've looked at the science of it. I was talking to my friend Carl, who is who at the time was the director of Ravensbourne University, which was, he was the director of the arts technology department. And I talked to him a lot about my experiences because he was fascinated and would look for other research and stuff. Anyway, so think of my head, my crown. my crown. And so I just got an image of something else. So there's, no, I won't go into that. I might go into that this afternoon in class. So when there's a shifting and opening, a connection through the head, right? So this is what I was shown in my knowing. This is what I was shown because I was experiencing it directly. This is the mystic direct experience. And then I go, I don't know what just happened. All right, let me knock this out. And then I'd be showing stuff. And it's like when the eye is looking through the hole, it sees the image on the back of the wall upside down. Right? When you're in that box that's representing the camera obscura, you see the image from outside, inside, upside down on the back wall. When that light came in through the top of my head, right, it flipped everything. It created confusion. But it was like the camera, well, it's more to it than that, but in a nutshell, the camera obscura, right? So there's light coming through and it's projecting or through the light, through that mechanism, right? What's outside, inside. But this was from spirit, not from outside here. Do you get me? So it's so much information that it blows your fuses. It just blows everything. And how I was seeing the world, it was like I was looking at things and I was seeing it all differently. Like it's part of your awakening and ascension process, but every step of the way that I've been through has been like full on like that. My students don't go through it to that degree. They just don't. It's like the 100 monkey thing, or, I was thinking about this morning about when I was in the shower about chants, right? And, ways of doing things because I'm getting shown a new way of doing something. And I was thinking, but we have all that history, all those, the shoulders that we stand on. I don't know if you can hear that. There's a noise in the background, but it'll be gone in a minute. And if we shift and do something new or what's new anyway, but something different, would it have the charge of all those lineages within it? And so I had to look at how to move forward. So just in a nutshell, it's to do with the red thread, right? I've actually got my red thread here from class the other day, right? But I connect with the blue. Anyone that knows me or has known me and what has taken me around the world and to all these experiences is the blue, not the red. Right? So there's the history and the lineage of the red thread, which is part of me. But my direct knowing and what has opened me to all of these stories and all of this knowing on top is, yeah, Nicole, you got it, the blue. But the red and the blue combined is violet, the threefold flame, right? So who's saying about Shiloh Sophia? It doesn't say the name. It says, do you know about Shiloh Sophia and her teachings of the red thread? So let me just tell you, the red thread book. So I was one of her second lot of teachers. Shiloh and I have been to, Barbara. Yeah, I have a long history with Shiloh. She's like sister. I have stories about her. Some of my students know, kneeling at the feet of the La Bonne Deliverance, the Lady of Deliverance in France, crying, and then going to the back of the chair and having one of there's multiple heart awakenings. Right? I was there when she was proposed to by Jonathan in France as well, on the steps. We got anyway, so I've painted in Monet's garden after hours with Shiloh. So long history in the Red Thread, and I was the ghostwriter and researcher for her Red Thread book, among other things. So if you've got that book, go and have a look, and it says thanks to a bunch of people, but my name's in there too, because I was one of the researchers. And actually, in fact, when I was researching all the different connections to the Red Thread, Sue Hoyer Sellers came in spirit to me, and I spoke to Shiloh on the phone that day and mentioned something, and she said somebody else had seen Sue that day as well, or that night as well. And she said to me, "What was she doing?" And I said, "Oh." And I thought about like how I saw her and where she was, and she was at the end of my bed, and she walked around to my nightstand, and Shiloh said, "What was on your nightstand?" And I said, "Oh, hang on," because I don't worry about the intricate details of things. Do you see? I get the energy of it, the spirit, and all the rest of it. I don't worry about those sort of man-made things. Anyway, but Shiloh brought it up. She said, "What was there?" And I said, "Hang on a minute, I'll go and have a look." And it was the draft of the book that I had been editing. That Red Thread book, that is in 2015, the first draft that wasn't even fully edited then in 2015, that went out to the first lot of students, and there's hundreds of students. You see what I mean by the shoulders? So if you've done anything with Shiloh since 2014, you're standing on her shoulders, but also mine, because of the interaction that we had, and I was in that inner circle back then, right? I mean, there's lots of things, but anyway, not to name drop, but you brought it up. And yes, but the Red Thread goes back to, I mean, I was telling some students the other day around how the red thread's wrapped around the tomb of a great matriarch, and then it's cut up and they wear there's so many legends. But the point being that in some countries, places, that's seen as the mother, and some it's seen as the father. Some, in the Chinese proverb is that we're all connected by an invisible thread, and then that got changed to, over time, like the blood, invisible red thread that can never break. It can be stretched, it can tangle, it can knot and whatnot, but it can never break. And so I've used that in the past with traumatized kids, that when they were going to school and they were, they had to go to school, but they maybe not ready to go to school. It was like me as their therapist trying to work out ways that we could navigate their nervous system, right? And so often I would do that little circle with them and give them some of the red thread. So I would wear it and they would have a piece, and they might put it on their bag, because sometimes they weren't allowed to wear stuff on them at school, or would make a little piece they could, tie to their pocket or their button or something. And I would say, because it's an energetic connection, and I would say, like, if you are feeling uncomfortable, or stuff's coming up, tug on the red thread, because I'm on the other end. It's like an energetic connection that you're okay, you're not alone. And so a lot of my, when I was a trauma therapist, trauma specialist, I would give my clients something that they could just be connected. So there's that, but my stories and the stories of, that's why we've got this background, right? That's why Rhombus Healing Arts is very much like this background, because it's what I see. It's what I see. And it's into the blue, right? It's the ocean of love and mercy. And there's different levels, like you can see the blue when you're in that particular chakra, but there's something beyond that. And so far, scanning, there's only really been one person, one great that I've met that sees the blue in the way that I'm talking about. And he happens to be a mystic. So I believe we say the mystically inclined. It's a different way of knowing, but it goes back to how we are, how we see, how we are, how we bring in the energy, how we move through our activations, right? Conscious evolution. That's the core of the work here, whether it's in ministry, in circle, in temple time, in programs, whatnot. If you come and do mediumship with me, you're going to go through how you connect with yourself, right? How you are, how your energy is, and then how you connect with others. And then how you connect with spirit and guides and passed over loved ones and whatnot. It's all evolution of the process of connection. In trance, it's very similar, although it's a slightly different process. But how are you connecting? Some of you that have been through those programs know that there are similarities, but there are also, slight deviations depending on the information you want to get. And so in these, we're connecting to what I call the beloved. Ultimately, that's what it's about. Every aspect of what we're talking about is an aspect of you. In fact, I watched a series last night. It's interesting. There was a part of it. It's called The Crowded Room, I believe. When I say I always half watch things because I'm always I was checking PowerPoints last night, while I was watching. But there was a point there that got me thinking, because it was about multiple personality. Has anyone seen it? I don't want to ruin it for you if you started watching it and you haven't seen it, because I think I just ruined it for you anyway. So when we're talking about guides and aspects of self or archetypes or different ways of knowing, and even mental health, like what makes, me sane, although some would say I'm not. But, I've asked many times, are you sure I'm good? Yeah. I had a friend of mine who's a psychiatrist. She said, if you're asking, you're good, right? Because people that aren't good don't ask. I was like, all right. So, anyway, it's just a joke. But I worked with, that was my job. I trained psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists and whatnot in all sorts of things, particularly trauma. But, I'd often go, wow, so all of these aspects of myself that I'm consciously aware of. And I think that's the difference, because in this show, and if you know anything about all these personalities, the shattered self, it's like a mirror. I used to give people that visual. It's like a mirror, and you hit it with a hammer and it just shatters into but it's all still connected. It's just that, do you know what I'm saying? Have you seen? I haven't seen a broken mirror for a long time, but you can remember back in the day. Or a rock's gone through and it sort of shatters but stays together. To me, that's what it's like And working with trauma, that's what it's like. Because we have aspects of self or parts of our consciousness that fragment. And part of my job was to understand the fragmentation of the self and to assist or facilitate that connection, right? So you think about what I talk about here and in the different programs, but also as in those roles of working with extremely vulnerable people, children and adults, and looking at where they've fractured off. And I started to use a model. I would draw it. I could draw it for you. I don't have a whiteboard, but you know what I do have? I have a folder and I have a whiteboard marker, and I'm going to write on my whiteboard marker because I feel like I need to show this. Somebody might need to know this today. It's got my my biblical Hebrew homework in it. Look at it. Isn't it awesome? Look at that. I sat and did that yesterday because I was behind 2 pages. It's like artwork, isn't it? I think it's upside down. There you go. It's upside down. There's my. So I'm going to show you this because what I've been talking about, and I know I go round in circles, upside down and back to front, but this is how it, camera obscura. You know, wait for your system to flip it so that you can see it clearly and it all is developed, like you're developing a photograph or a, what are they called? Not an X-ray. The film. Call those. See, we don't have them anymore, but I used to do photography, so it's like, you know, putting it in a solution, you know, the negative. Okay, so we've got our normal state. This pen doesn't work. Our normal state of consciousness, or our general state of consciousness. Right? Our general state of consciousness. Come over here so Instagram can see. And then so this is specifically where I used to work and where I still do, but we don't call it trauma therapy, we call it evolution, right? Because you're pulling all the aspects of yourself back together. You're remembering the self, right? And so just on this little human level, this is what we're looking at. So we have these circles, right? And just say that's an emotion that you're dealing with, or that's an aspect of self, or a dysregulation. But when you get angry, you're way over here. This is where you are. And you can't contact here. Can't contact here. Have you ever seen people that are so angry that they're just not connected to reality? They've just lost the plot. This is what's happening. They can't connect. They're completely off. And they might even be so out there that the only point that's touching in is that little point there. And that was most of my clients. Insert any aspect you want. We're just using anger because it seems, you know, it seems to be the one that society doesn't accept, right? It's how we deal with our anger, right? So what my job, and so this is the model that I started to draw for children, but also their parents, so that they could understand it's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's that we're building this connection in here. Right? See that little piece in there? Or for here, it's this tiny little window. The connection. So what we're doing is the processes and protocols and the techniques that we would do, movement, breath, energetics, whatever you want to call it, is building that connection back in. So that when you get angry, it's more and more connected, more and more conscious. It's okay to be angry, right? Anger is not a bad thing. Do you get me? Until you have a feeling, an emotion of anger, and you're aware of it, so you can behave it out more consciously rather than having a tantrum or whatnot. This is also a way of, I mean, it's consciousness. Look at these as, you know, just how connected you are in different aspects of self, right? Because we could use this as trying to get them. We could use this as the as guides or ascended masters or deities that materialize or whatever. So we could go, let shout out something. I'm trying to think. Let's just say they're higher aspects of ourselves, right? You have all these, right? And they might even be off over here, or you know. So you go into trance or mediumship or meditation or whatever, and you're able to connect and bring them in, right? Or at least have a line to them. But as you go along, this folder's come in handy. This, as you go along, so we have a teaching, it's more like this, where you have all of these deities or ascended masters or whatever, and you're down here, and you go into connection. So it might be through a dream state. Most people go through dream state. I just go into it, but one of my friends, he would dream and be taught in his dream state, which isn't really a dream state, it's another sort of dimensional state. Anyway, so what would happen is there's all these teachers, right, in this other state, and you go up there and you're taught, right? You're taught, or you're connected, or you get information, whatever. And then over time, you merge with them, with that one. So that one and that one merge, and you come back to you. So now you are part of them. And then you go again, and maybe this, you and that one merge. So now all of who they are is who you are, right? And so on and so forth, until you are all of them, right? And I don't think I've taught it this way before, so it's just because this links to how, when I'm saying, some of you have heard me say around the aspects of yourself. The aspects of yourself, meaning you see them separate, but the aspects of you that as you develop, you integrate and speak as them. Right? They want to experience through you. It's not like that. You see, this is just how I experience it, how I see it. So if you're looking at split or multiple personalities, is what they were calling it in this show, or the splits in consciousness, or the different deities or visions or teachers across the veil, right? Remember, I started saying, what's your most ancient relative? What's your most ancient not relative, what are they called? Ancestor. What's your most ancient ancestor? Your most ancient ancestor. So any ideas? I'm not going to tell you. That's a whole nother story if I tell you. Anyway, so contemplate that, because when we're saying, oh, I'm talking to this deity or this being, or even religious figures, they're an aspect of you. It's the aspect of Jesus or the Magdalene or the Black Madonna or Abraham or Shiva, Shakti, Hanama, Ramdas. That sees through my eyes. My grandparents or my great, all your relatives. There's one soul. You are them and you aren't them. Where's the individuation? Right? And all the emanations. Yet we are. And so, and saying we are is a bit flippant. I'm just looking at how much to go into that. So anyway, this afternoon we'll be starting that. So that's what Sai is about, all of this and more. But, I want to share bits and pieces with you to get you contemplating that you're much more than you believe you are. And even if you don't believe you're restricted, you're even much more than that. It's infinite. It's infinite. Okay. Purity of unconditional love is infinite. And I guess the contemplation there is that don't limit yourself to, if you are connecting with a guide or what you think is a guide, what you feel is a guide, connect and just ask for another aspect of self. Just be open and explore. Because as some of you know, especially, doing practices for long periods of time, over 12 months through the intuitive studies, you would have discovered that if you were already connecting with particular deities or guides or aspects, that they changed over the course of the program. Why? You weren't restricted to grasping for that one. You were open to what else? Show me another aspect of myself. Now, if that's not integrated, then it's out there. So if Vishnu comes to you, what are the aspects of Vishnu? Or Vishnu was one that came to me like in the early days. So just I didn't even know who he was. right? But he showed me the like the aspects of himself, right? The the, the half fish, half man with the um, peacock feather, right? They were what he showed me. I was like, oh, okay. And the emanations of that. So all of these aspects that they're showing an aspect of yourself. And if you can understand the aspect, right, or the emanation, and integrate that, it gives you're illuminating even more of the beloved, because they're all aspects of the beloved. You see? So when I ask you, what you're connected to, oh my goodness. Right. So our little minds explode on that. Just like saying, with the death alchemy and that process. I've had many students go through the death alchemy with nothing like that happening, but it's like, it's like the ones that sort of go through earlier, like some of my teachers went through horrendous things that I didn't have to go through. And then, but I still went through some difficult, processes. And I don't see that anymore. I don't see that anymore. We have ways of knowing that we don't need to experience like that anymore, right? I know that how I experience is not how everyone else will, because of what I'm here to do. And it doesn't make me better, doesn't make me worse. It just is. And so, if you're on a journey of conscious evolution, and you have questions, well, you know where to come to ask for a start, because there's not a lot that I haven't experienced directly, or, my students haven't. I've been teaching for a long, long time, and I've seen and heard and experienced a lot of things. It's funny because I've had some people so frightened to share stuff with me because they think it's so out there. And when they tell me, it's like, oh, yeah. And we just laugh. I'm like, yeah, I know that experience. Yep. And this, and yeah. That's right. It's awesome. It's beautiful. It's normalizing it. It's like, oh, okay. Someone else knows. I'm not completely bonkers. I don't need to be in a psychiatric unit. Funnily enough, my daughter was a psych nurse for a long time before she became a CU nurse. So, I don't know whether I drove her to it or not, but she loved it. She loved that work. So a message for those of you that if you are struggling, or people that are going through some really strange, or they feel they're strange occurrences, or they don't quite understand what's happening, then this is a container that you can use to ask your questions, and we'll see if I've got a story about it. My story is a direct experience, but usually I have, because if you've been through the process, right, it might be, it's like going, you say, I use this example a lot. It's like, oh yeah, I went to Italy, or I went to, so Nicole was saying she went to the Harry Potter mansion thing where they filmed part of it. And I said, oh, did you go to the Camera Obscura? And she said, no, she didn't see that, right? But other areas might be. So there's still some differences. Doesn't mean it's exactly the same, but you still have the vicinity of the experience that, majority that of people most likely that are around you would have no understanding of what on earth you're talking about in the general population, right? It's more and more these days, but Warwick Castle, yeah, something like that, had a big cauldron there. Pretty sure people lived there. It was pretty awesome. All right, let's do a quick circle to finish. Otherwise, I'm going to just keep telling story all day. And got to save some juice for this afternoon. Right? I haven't even had breakfast yet. Well, I've been awake since 6 a.m., but I haven't eaten yet. Got my chai. All right. So lots to contemplate today. Let me, I'm just going to turn. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't record, but it'll be saved on I didn't record on Zoom. So just after all of that thinking, contemplating, coming back to the aspect of self that you know, whatever that is, you know, just coming back to that aspect of self that you know, that you're familiar with. You may not even know it. You're just familiar with her or him. And just breathe. So just do a connection with each other in circle. Knowing that all of the people who see through our eyes are connected as well. All our ancestors, all the way back to the star. The most ancient ancestor through the light. David Bowie called it the black star. One of my friends, Dan Winter, a scientist, when I described to him about the gate, how I see the gate, and he said, he's a French philosopher, scientist, his friend, who wrote a book on this black star, but it hasn't been transcribed into English, so, you know, but we discussed this. So what those scientists theorize about is what I see, what I experience directly. So we have some awesome conversations with this ancient ancestor, this black hole, this blackness, this darkness, where the womb, the Adi Shakti, and all of the power is birthed into the world. The most ancient ancestor. Breathe. Connecting to all. And when you feel your connection and you have names of people that may need some extra love, extra connection, just place with intent their essence into the center of our circle. You can put their name in the chat if you like, just to bring it in a little more. Sometimes that energy is, you know, when you write it or draw it or say it, brings it in more, more, more. Melvin. Placing the essence or the thought of them into the center as best you know how. Just bringing them to mind with intention that they receive what they're able to receive at this moment. May they open to receive a little bit more in this container. May they feel safe and secure to, in their essence, receive. From the most ancient of ancestors, from all that we are, the emanation as it comes through and ratchets down through all of us. Breathe. With no attachment to the outcome, just allowing what is theirs to receive. In the highest purity of love, the grace of the beloved, may they be touched by the hand of grace. May you all be touched by that hand. Just showing up for yourselves and for others today. We'll wrap up our circle. Just making your way back to your self while you're connected to your general state of consciousness. So having that awareness today that you are general state of consciousness in your everyday human physical form, and be open to that. What happens if you move into the world open to the integration of all of those aspects of self, whatever you want to label or call them? What would that be? What would that be like? How would you experience that? Because that is part of the teachings, that as you move through your illumination, your self-realization, your awakening, your ascension, is a practice. And as you get more mastery in that integration, you are. You are. So we'll wrap up now. Thank you. For those of you inside, I'll see you this afternoon for our first theory session. Theory / story / direct experience. And so much information. I was saying this morning, we're going to have to put some in the workbook because I can't possibly share it all. There's so much. So thank you for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yay. It's nice when I get your responses. We get Restream working properly. I finally worked it out, I believe. So until Thursday, if not before, I'll see you Thursday. I'll be back for some more mystic medicine, musings and ministry, and we'll see where we go there. And for the rest of you, I'll see you this afternoon at 2 p.m. Hawaiian time. And for the rest of you, may you walk in your magnificence, knowing that you've been touched by the hand of grace, whether you believe it or not. May the blessings be. Much love.